Why we're here, I'm not sure there's a reason, to be honest. I think it's just random. I think a lot of coincidences happened for this to happen. And I think that's what's so crazy about it, is that everything needs to be perfectly aligned for there to be life on a planet. And the fact that we got that, and then not only life, but life that evolves enough to have consciousness. Like, that is insane in itself. Like, how many planets are there that have that? I mean, we haven't found one yet. I'm sure there are some, but I mean, it's really tough to get that. And I think that in itself is a gift. Why we're here, I mean, I don't really know. Like, there's a reason, maybe not. I think, well, my mom would say we're here to improve our soul and make things better in the world. And I do think that that's why I am here, is my purpose is to like help the world get better or like release some suffering. But I also believe that everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own purpose, and that's for everyone to find out by themselves. Um, and then like the meaning of life. I mean, I would say meaning of humans is honestly, I think it's just to enjoy life. It's just to experience it. It's just to be here and actually experience it and be like, damn, this is pretty cool that we get to experience that. I mean, I don't know how many other planets get to do that.
Or even other life forms.
Yeah. Or other life forms. I mean, I could have been a little bacteria, but like, that would have been kind of boring. I don't know. Maybe it's cool to be bacteria. I don't know. But like, I think it's pretty cool to be a human. To be even able to have this kind of conversation is amazing. So I would say the meaning of life is that we should just appreciate it, value it for what it is, respect it. And yeah, like live with love and kindness and compassion, and to try to find a reason to be here and try to make the most of it.
3, 2, 1. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Today, I'm here with Maya. Maya, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I always say it's a good day out. And so when it's a good day out, I'm in a great mood. So my spirits are high. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be having this conversation with you. Um, we both have to keep our...
Yeah, no, I didn't say anything.
Okay. So we're here today to talk about a conversation which is actually very important to me, very dear to me. I think I mentioned to you that I've also been ongoing a change, let's say, and of spiritual aspects. We're trying to avoid the word spiritual awakening. I know we're talking about that because I think it's more important to talk about the feelings that precede that and also what it is once you feel like you're going through it. And I want to have that conversation today about the journey.
Yeah.
So I think that's more interesting. So to begin, the question I have for you, let's start with definitions. What definitions? How would you define spirituality?
Oh my God, I keep that's a hard one.
For you?
For me, I think when I say I'm spiritual, I think I kind of have my own definition of everything, of the way I see the world, of what I believe in. Kind of just have my own definition of it. I guess what I see as spirituality is that I believe in a higher consciousness, which I define as the energy of the universe. And I see that as being interconnected and intertwined with everything. So I see that everything in the universe is connected. And yeah, everything like will have an influence on everything else, basically. It's kind of like, the butterfly effect. It's like, yeah, glasses, wings, and there's like a storm on the other side of the world. Like, I kind of see it as that. I think every little action has consequences, and everything we do influences everyone around us and the whole world around us. And I also think, and I mean, this is where, I know people are not big on astrology, a lot of people, but anyway, I just say what I have to say. That planets and like everything has an influence on us, and therefore also like planets, and it's just all energy. And I believe that just everything is energy, basically.
on that point, everything is energy.
Yeah.
How does
that's
that manifest? Is it like inanimate objects also have energy too?
Yeah, I would say so. They all have energy. Yeah. So, for example, I believe that let's say you're someone who's really, really depressed, and let's say you have, I don't know, a ring, right? And that's like, you always have that ring, it's really important to you, and you're super depressed, and then you, let's say you like commit suicide or something. I would say that ring would hold a lot of that negative energy. And then if someone else would take over that ring, I think that negative energy can go onto you. I know this is a lot of like,
No, this is fine. This is fine. And we're going to do a lot of that kind of conversation here. I want to explore the world beyond people's understanding. So it's like we're going to be going on to a lot of like kind of like third kind of reality conversation. So although they exist in there a lot. So
yeah, I just honestly, to be completely honest, like I know we talk about this a lot with like most people, because I know a lot of people out there are like, what the hell, this girl is like.
yeah, but this is the perfect place to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one person who understands. So we're going to be doing that a lot today.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your definition of spirituality.
Yeah, I would say the main thing is like, I would say the main thing is that everything is energy, everything is connected, and energy never dies, it only transforms. That's another thing. So yeah, what else? I mean, there's a lot, I believe, Eddie.
Okay. So talk to me also about when you start to get connected to this idea personally or spirituality, when you start to feel it for yourself, but also like go down the rabbit hole of understanding it.
Yeah, so I think like when I started thinking about these things, so like around when I was like 15, I was very atheist. Like I was very like, not believing in God at all. I was like, grew up, well, my mom's Buddhist, my dad he's not really spiritual, but his family's Catholic. So I went to, like what's it called? Sunday
school.
Sunday school. So I went to the whole like Catholic stuff. And I never believed in any of it. And I was like, this is not, like when you're like 15, you think you're smart.
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so I was like, what do you mean Jesus like transformed water and why? Like, how is that possible? Like, how can Mary like be virgin? Like, I was like, this makes no sense. I don't believe in any of this crap and stuff. And then Buddhism, I didn't really know much about it at the time. So I wasn't really interested. Well, yeah, I didn't really learn more about it. But I was like, yeah, I'm an atheist. Like, nothing, like why, like anyway, I was like, after we die we just die, that's it, like there's nothing else. Like, and then I also remember being like really scared, like I literally wouldn't be able to sleep because I'd be like, oh my god, when I die, like that's it, there's nothing. And literally all my thoughts would just stop and like consciousness would just be gone. And I was like terrified of that.
The idea of that is kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not really scared of it anymore. But yeah, so at the time I was like really terrified of it. And like I wouldn't be able to sleep and stuff. Anyways, I was very atheist. I was also smoking a lot of weed at the time. Why?
No, it's fine. Keep going.
And I think weed, I don't know. Personally, it was making me think a lot about my existence on Earth, meaning of life, like basically think about deeper meaning of things. And I think I was, oh my god, I was so into weed at the time, and I was like, like Bob Marley fan, and I was like peace and love and stuff. Anyway, and I think, to be honest, like, okay, weed made me messed up in the head forever, but I also think it did maybe other good things for me, like maybe open me up to like the deeper meanings of life and made me see things from different perspectives that I probably might have not seen if I'd always just stayed sober. And yeah, and then I think I was really dabbling into that. And then I had kind of like this spiritual experience with weed where I had smoked like a lot. Like I was so high and I was too deep into it. And I wasn't even able to speak to other people. I was like so deep in my thoughts. Like I was like, whoa, like I'm really high. And then basically I started thinking about God and the world and the universe. And I was thinking so much. And I think like slowly I was becoming more and more spiritual. And well, I basically couldn't, like, I was even the next, I didn't sleep, and I was still kind of like high the next day. And also I didn't want to, like, I wanted to stay high. So I was kind of like making myself like that. And I didn't want to go back to being sober. And then I was like, oh my God, I think I found out how to stay high for the rest of my life. I mean, obviously I had issues and insecurities, you know, I was 15. So I think I felt better in my own body when I was high. And anyway, so then I did that, and I was sleeping like very little for like a week. And I was constantly just thinking about the world and the meaning of life and the purpose of life and things like that. And it was basically making me go crazy. Like, I was slowly losing it. Until like I was at boarding school at the time. So I went back to boarding school. This was like during the holidays. I mean, the school should not even hear this because I would have been expelled. But anyway, and I remember they showed this video. It was like an ad for the school. And they're like, oh, we're very international, blah, blah. And I remember, I mean, I was already like kind of borderline, like, I shouldn't even say insane, but I don't know what else to say, like borderline insane. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, I also thought I could see people's auras. And I was like, oh, this person's aura is good, this person's aura is bad. And I would only go to the people with good aura, things like that. Anyway, then I would see that video and be like, whoa, this is so bad. Like, the school only cares about money. And then I was like, oh my God, the whole world only cares about money. Like, the love is gone. Like, no one cares about love anymore. And I started crying like so loudly, like in front of the whole school. And I had to like run out, and I was like crying so loudly. All the teachers came up to me. They were like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was trying to explain to them, and they were just like, what is she on about? You know? And then they brought me to the hospital. Well, first they wanted to bring me just to the school, like what's it called? Like the doctor.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, no, she has a bad aura. I'm not going with her. And then they brought me to the hospital, and I was talking about like God and the universe, and people were like, what is going on with her? And then I remember having all these realizations, and I was like, wait, but God can be a human. Like, if you have a really big influence on the world, you could just become like a god. And then I said that, and then my teacher was like, well, Buddha was a real person. And I didn't know that at the time. And I was like, oh my God, I thought Buddha was like a god. I didn't realize it was actually a person. I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. And and then, yeah, anyway. And then I was like listening to Bob Marley, and I was like, peace and love. Anyway, but it was the time when I felt very, very connected to the world, to like the universe. And I really felt the spiritual energy that I'd never felt before. And it was just like a really, really intense experience. It kind of also felt like I was in a dream. So I felt like I was in real life, but like almost like in between real life and a dream. It didn't feel like real life. It didn't feel fully like a dream. It's almost like in between. And it was very, very spiritual, but I was also losing it. And then they brought me to the psychiatric ward, and yeah, then I got better. But yeah, so that was like the first time that I had a very like spiritual experience.
Did it feel like an awakening in that moment, or do you think, looking back now, it was a psychosis? Like, what's the line between those two? Now you've got some time to reflect on that. How do you look at that experience?
Well, first of all, I mean, you know, spiritual awakening, like I told you, like it sounds like this huge thing, right? Especially Buddhism, like monks, you know, they devote their whole life to have a spiritual awakening. So it's almost like I don't want to make it sound like it's something that I can just get as a 16-year-old, like when people literally devote their whole life to it and they do so much to get to that point. So I obviously, like, I don't know what it's like to have like a full-on spiritual awakening. I just know that I was probably on a journey towards that, and that I probably had something that was going there. That was at least like maybe like the first level of spiritual awakening or something. I don't know. But I think the issue with that was that I was so like happy, and I was so like loving the world, loving life and the universe and God. And I was like, oh my God, God is real, blah, blah, blah. And then I think I was like out of balance with the real world, and this it's almost like there's like the real world and the spiritual world, and I didn't know how to like balance them together. And then I went too far into the spiritual world, where it made me literally like lose my mind and lose my connection to reality, and I didn't know anymore what was real and what wasn't. And I think that's also like the dangers of spirituality. And I think also a lot of people don't really talk about the dangers of spirituality, because I think it can be really dangerous, and it's not something to, it's like even the meditation retreats and things like that. Like, I think it can like really trigger things in you, and it can trigger like psychosis or psychotic breaks or things like that in you. And well, I've been on a meditation retreat in Thailand, and I didn't feel like there was enough support for people who could get that. And I mean, obviously, like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, it's probably hard to like put that into place. Um, but I just think in general, like, I don't think I see a lot of information about how spirituality can go wrong, basically.
That's so fascinating. That's so fascinating. Actually, I want to touch on a point that you said before. I think you made so many good points there. So first off, when you're talking about you having that experience and having that kind of, let's not use the word awakening, but that kind of understanding that there was a world beyond that kind of material world. Yeah, the kind of beyond the real world, and your people around you not understanding that because they exist fully in that real world, and you be bouncing in between that. I think it's so interesting too, because I've had a similar experience too, where it's like I became disillusioned with a lot of things because I looked around and I saw everyone so invested in the material stuff. But I was like, no, there's something bigger. That's so connection to something bigger.
Yeah, there's like, yes, exactly. And I think that's why at the time I cried so much, because I felt like people had they just lost the purpose to their life. Was all of a sudden it's just about making money. It was just about, finding security for yourself, but it's not anymore about like being selfless and loving and kind towards yourself and towards others. And I always like, I mean, maybe that is just what I live by, but I always realize when I have these spiritual I shouldn't say these spiritual experiences, what I feel the most is, and I really feel it to my deepest core, and it's a very divine experience where I'm like, love is literally the most important thing in the universe. And I think, and that's just what I feel, what I experience, is that love is like the purest form of energy in the universe. And that's kind of like, you're here just to love and to try. I mean, maybe, I don't know if we're all here for that purpose, but I feel like my purpose is to help like get rid of some of the suffering. I'm not going to be able to get rid of all the suffering in the world, but at least to ease some of the suffering on this planet. Like, that's kind of, I feel like, my purpose. And I think I've been distracted a lot, and I probably didn't know my purpose for a long time, or I would find my purpose and I would lose it again. It would be kind of like an ongoing journey. And I feel like society teaches you to a lot. Well, not everywhere. I think it's definitely Western society is very individualistic, and it's a lot about fend for yourself. You have to take care of yourself and like make money and just survive in this capitalistic world. And it's kind of like everyone for themselves, And I don't know. I think it does isolate people. Like, you don't really have the sense of community anymore. Like, I mean, for sure, some people still find that. But I think especially in big cities like London or New York, like, people get really lonely. And I think that's where there's more rates of depression and suicide and things like that, because they're more isolated.
I want to talk also about that kind of like the downfall of the lack of love in our society in a bit. But also you mentioned about how love is the purest of energy.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Because I do agree also. I think human beings are we project love and we feel better when we project the most pure love, or it's not wanting anything from people.
Yeah, I think being selfless and just loving, I think that is like the best thing it can do.
Do you think that's inherently
and compassion? I guess
Do you
compassion.
think human beings are made that way, or do you think that's something we have to like bring out of ourselves? Or do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think. Do you mean if we have it, like if it's in our nature, or if we learn it?
Yeah, is it nature or is it learned?
You know, I think about this, and I think about my own spiritual journey, and I wonder if I have this because of my upbringing. And I'm wondering, maybe I think that love is the purest form of energy because that's maybe what I experienced as a child. And maybe I've been like, I've been fortunate enough to receive love as a child from my parents. And maybe it's just a form of wanting to go back to that purest form of myself, right? Like as a child, because I think you learn the most important parts of your psychology, like all the development of your brain is between like when you're born and like 5 years old. So I think that might be why. So maybe I'm making all of this up in my head because that's just what I had as a child. And I think as humans, we always want to go back to our like child, like.
But then you know them. But you look at around the world and look at the religions and all the prophets and the people the religions worship.
Yeah,
that's their message. Jesus' message.
Yeah.
He has
For sure. I'm just I just always question, like myself and my experiences. And I wonder if it's because of that. I'm not saying it is. It might not be. It might be just an actual like divine thing. But then I see, for example, psychopaths, right? And that's what I was gonna say. A lot of children aren't born as psychopaths. They develop to becoming psychopaths, and they have shown, like there were studies that showed that like children, when they don't receive any love, that's when they become psychopaths. So they have never really experienced love, right? So they don't know how to love anymore. And then I'm like, they probably wouldn't agree with me in the way I see the world. In a way, they would never say love is the most purest form of energy, right? Definitely. So that's why I'm thinking, well, are you really born with it? Or is it, I think it's something that is almost like a survival thing. Like you need to receive it to survive in this world. And I think like, especially when I see people with like, psychopathic like tendencies, well, especially when they're actual psychopaths or narcissists and like people with like very heavy mental health issues like that, they've had a lot of trauma growing up, right? So in that way, it does make me wonder if it is something we learn,
Okay, that's so fascinating. Okay, I also want to talk about, let's try and like understand spirituality from the perspective of psychologists, because I think there's a link between what we're talking about here, between what our society has learned about these things, what we understand from a kind of scientific point of view, and also what, like the religious texts and everything else kind of like spoken about spirituality and love and embracing that, there's like I think there's a difference. There's a definite divergence. So why do you think psychologists struggle to understand spirituality? Like you mentioned.
Well, I wouldn't say really it's just psychologists. I think it's just scientists in general.
Why do you think scientists struggle to understand these concepts like spirituality and, these higher terms we're talking about?
I think it's because it's so different to the physical worlds. Because science, what even is science? You like gather information and then you make an assumption based on evidence and you make the same observation over and over again. And then you can make a prediction for the observation so that you can make a rule that predicts these observations, right? Yeah. So like, I think it's like a very like physical world, material world kind of thing.
Yes.
And I think with spirituality, that's not like how it works.
It's the unknown.
And even with feelings, like they don't really know. I think scientists, they don't even really understand why we dream, right? It's like, it's all this like stuff that we see it. We can see, oh, they're in REM sleep when they dream, or they can see, oh, when they had emotions, these are the hormones are getting released. But I don't think they're able to see like really the connection beyond that. And I think it's because it's really, really difficult for us to make proper like to gather proper data for that and to make proper observations. Yes. How do you even observe that, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I also think like there's an understanding that like what is a lack of understanding about these ideas, science is more about like cataloging the things that we understand, like if you go out and look at a plant, you can understand the plants, you can understand what the relation is to other things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the world in between that, the world in between what we don't understand, we struggle, especially with science, to kind of like bridge that gap. I think science is a way for us to bridge the gap of our lack of understanding, but there's so much that we don't understand that we don't even
Definitely.
we don't even know how to even approach that, so we get lost in that. I think people have that dissonance within themselves about they have to pick one. They have to be on the spiritual side or the scientific side.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Do you see that in yourself? Did you think like, when you were growing up, you have to believe in science, you have to believe in spirituality?
No, I think I never really felt like the two couldn't be together, to be honest. I think both can be together, and I think...
How so?
Well, I think I believe it. I mean, I'm not at all against science, and I think it does great things for society. And, like in terms of medicine, in terms of technology, in terms of loads of aspects, I just think that, well, I guess one issue I have with science is that sometimes people follow it where they don't even think for themselves anymore. Like they would never question science, you know what I mean? And I think you should always question everything, like even science. And I'm not saying science is wrong. I'm just saying people are biased. And people are the ones making those experiments. And also people have a lot of ulterior motives when sometimes there are studies out there that are paid by certain companies that want a certain outcome, certain results. I mean, like, I don't know how many years ago, but like they used to have studies that said that smoking was good for you, right? Like that's the thing, like and science is changing all the time. So that's the only thing that sometimes I think you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And not be too like deep into it. And I think there's one study that will tell you this is bad, another study that would tell you the same thing is good, right? There's so many things out there. So I think it's almost like an overload of information that we have nowadays, and it's hard to filter through what is right and what is wrong, like in terms of news, in terms of like information, and I guess that includes science as well. Like there's just so much information out there, and a lot of it is not real, well, not right. So I think it's just hard to even be able to kind of, find your way.
Between, I think it's important to be skeptical of both of them because, just like how you're skeptical of some spiritual gurus.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be skeptical of some scientific professors because they just, like you said, have their own ulterior motives. Okay. I want to also now touch on, because I know I want to circle back to that idea of spirituality and psychosis, because I think that's a fascinating topic. Like especially when we're talking about differences, how we look at things in the West and the East.
Yeah.
So like, I think in the West, when we approach spirituality is from a very like technical point of view, you have less of a openness to the ideas that are beyond like, on the edge of it. Obviously, Buddhism wasn't formulated here. We have our own kind of like way of looking at religion, and so we kind of we're more comfortable with that. But what is it like in the East? Like, obviously, I'm not from there, but from your understanding, how do the East approach spirituality and all these things, and even the ideal psychosis? How do they approach it differently from the West?
I mean, I think like the East is obviously like Asia is like huge, right? And it's like so different compared like in terms of like every country is very different. Like you have like Hinduism, which is like a huge, very old like religion. Then you have Buddhism, and in Japan you have Shintoism, and then I don't know, there's other ones probably. But yeah, so I don't know that much about Hinduism because I didn't grow up with that. So I could only talk about Buddhism really, because that's kind of like, but I still don't know everything about it. But what I find interesting with Buddhism is that it doesn't focus too much on the afterlife. It focuses more on your life now, like on the present. And basically it focuses more on how to be happy. I mean, a lot of it is about how to find spiritual awakening. But a lot of it is, well, I would say it's more like philosophies really, on like how to live life. And it's very similar to like Stoicism. And it's just about, you should be detached from things, not get personal hands, and being present in the moment, being mindful. Compassion is a huge thing as well. Yeah, sorry, what was it?
Is it a religion?
Yeah, it's a religion.
In what way is it a religion?
We have like temples and stuff.
Oh, okay. So it's practiced as a daily thing. It's not like it's not top down. You know how religion in the
Well,
West.
they do have like monks and, people like that. Like they have different levels. I don't really know. That's what I know too much about Buddhism. I know there's like different levels. Like you have to go through like a whole thing if you want to become like on the higher like levels and stuff. And then if you're like monk, probably you'd be vegetarian. But yeah, I mean, I know more about the practices of like meditation and the philosophies behind it. There's a lot more regarding the religion itself that I don't know too much about, so I don't want to say like anything
wrong. No, I understand.
Yeah.
So I remember in that conversation you mentioned the TED Talk that.
Oh yeah.
So talk to me about that TED Talk where they found the difference between like how the East and the West.
So I wouldn't really say East because like it's more like a tribes.
Okay.
And it wasn't just in the East. I think it was also in South America.
That's true. In Africa, sure,
yeah. Yeah, probably in Africa as well. So I wouldn't say it's an Eastern thing. I think it's more like a tribe thing. Because I think like countries in the East, they don't do that. Like, but anyway, yeah. So what I was showing you about the TED Talk is that tribes have like shamans a lot of the time, and shamans are basically like healers, and they kind of have this connection to the spiritual world. And this researcher, he went to study them and noticed that these shamans undergo like a psychosis. And that's kind of how they find out who becomes a shaman, is like by seeing who gets a psychosis. And then once they see, okay, this person has this like gift of becoming a shaman, so they go through an initiation phase. And a lot of initiations in those tribes are about, so they include like not sleeping for multiple nights or one night, but it's like a lack of sleep, because that's what kind of triggers the psychosis more. They would do like maybe some like dances, some movements that kind of like bring the energy out like in your body, that probably like kind of moves your energy. And yeah, and then they go through a psychosis, but they have a guide, so like someone who's already a shaman who like guides them through it. And then they kind of go through it, and they do like different tests as well. I mean, from what I've read, but some of them would have to do like certain tests of like walking on, like hot coal, or do things like that.
So that's so
just to show that they actually have made it through. And then they basically become a shaman. And they would be like, they would do healing for the community, or I don't know, they would probably maybe do things with like ancestors, things like that. And yeah, I showed you that because it was just a way to show that different cultures treat psychosis in different ways, I guess, and interpret it in different ways. So in those cultures, it's almost like a gift to get that. Whereas then like when let's say modern society, not only the West, in modern society, people see it as like something bad and like possessed, and you have to stop it as soon as possible. But I think that's also because they don't understand it. So they're scared of it. So when you're scared of something, you just want to like stop it. And you don't want to understand it. Because you're scared of it, right? But I feel like those tribes, they are, to be honest, more connected to nature and to spirituality. And I think that's why they, I think, have a better way of dealing with it. I mean, I would love to like go see some of those tribes and understand more about it, because I find it really fascinating. Like maybe do my own shaman.
So you walk in the hot corners?
Yeah,
like no, that's it for me.
No, maybe I'll be mentally strong enough to do it.
Yeah, that's true. But you reached that level of assertion. I think that's so interesting, like the differences, because I was speaking to a friend about this actually, and we was talking about how he thinks it's interesting how in the West, when you don't understand something, it's just straight up like block. They try to like figure out, instead of trying to like open it up and like just like he imagine modern societies, right?
Yeah, modern society.
They try to like stop it from happening rather than letting it like, but like obviously in those trials, and I think it says something about how our evolution has gone. Where the more we get more involved, we build these massive skyscrapers, the more we retreat from the world that was made us all.
Yeah, so the connection to nature is kind of lost, basically.
Yeah,
And I think nature is, for me, like, you're kind of God. It's kind of like nature made us, you know?
God, speak more about that. Nature, the idea that nature is God. How does that relate to the spirituality and
Yeah.
stuff there?
Well, I guess that's another thing, right? I feel like some people get scared of the word God, or it's like, oh, you believe in God, okay, so you're like, you're like naive, or you're like brainwashed by religion. No, like, I have my own idea of God, and well, for me, like, it's the same thing as I said before with spirituality. It's just like the energy of the universe, and I think we have to respect that, and we have to respect the universe and nature, because that's where we come from. It's like our mother, right? Like Mother Nature. And I think we don't really respect it much these days, like when you look at global warming, when you look at like what we're doing with nature, like, for sure, like, there's still like people trying to plant trees and things like that. But I think on a global scale, the amount of pollution, the amount of littering, the amount of like pollution in the oceans, like, it's heartbreaking. Like, it really is. And I think that's what I mean when we lose our connection to nature. It's like we lose the respect that we should have for our ancestors and for where we come from. And I think that's probably what breaks that connection to the spirituality and the divine. And that's why we don't understand that part of us anymore, because we've lost it,
I completely agree. I think there's a move towards that disconnect. There's a rationality becomes crowns everything.
Yeah.
Or this world, this new world is like, it worships rationality, it worships these ideas of like production and industrialization, and we just try to build more and more and more. But we take so much from the environment that we have to a point now where we're kind of like looking around being like, whoa, like, we actually made like damage that maybe isn't with.
Well, that's what I mean, where I feel like people kind of, I feel like, well, people or society, I don't know, it's almost like we've lost this part of ourselves that it should be just here to love one another and be selfless and kind to another. And it's a lot is just about making money and invent for yourself, and that's like a more selfish approach, right? And I think that's where we lose our connection to each other, also to nature and also to God.
I mean, I often think about this, and this might be woohoo, religious, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I often think about this. There's a connection that we have to the higher realm. I believe it's a connection to God. And then we got another connection, which is to our flesh, to the human body, which is like, animalistic, and it has like desires, it has self-preservation, it wants to like, evolution, like all these things, I do believe there's different levels of analysis when it comes to these different things. So like religion has a different place to spirituality, and that has a different place to science, because what religion does for us in our connection to the higher realm is different from what science does to us in our understanding of our environment, but like we're trying to merge the two, and then we hit it, this doesn't work for this, so this must be wrong. And it's like, I think that kind of I think that's been an ongoing battle in the mind of the species for so long, that we've kind of modeled the world so much we didn't even understand the difference anymore. I think it shows in how we treat each other, right?
Yeah.
Because there's another question I have for you, is like the understanding of the other, right? Whenever I go through a spiritual awakening, I often feel like, and I think it's definitely a thing where, because I'm mostly connected to peace. I kind of just finding peace and finding comfortability with my environment. It's like once I understand my role in the wider pattern, let's say, I become more like calmer. My emotions are more like steadier. I think definitely, like. But in that moment, I can understand that I am one of the other. I am one with you. I'm one of the person who's walking in the street, because we both come from the same source. Yeah, it's just they're just built from different perspectives, Exactly. Yeah. So, question out for you is, what is that? What is that like? There's that feeling of like feeling that there is no other, and that we're all connected from the same source. How is that like? What does that play in your life?
And I mean, that is not even like a faith thing, right? That is literally like science. Like, we know that we all come from the same source. I mean, we're all from the same universe. Like, obviously all come from the same source. Like, we used to all be just stardust, right? So that's not even like a crazy belief to have, but we know it's actually true. But it's like people forget that, I think.
Why? Why do you think we forget that?
Um, I think it's the same thing. Like the fact that I think you're too, I don't want to say brainwashed, but you're like so deep into this society that was built by us humans that you forget about the bigger picture, and you forget that at the end of the day, we're literally just random animals on a floating rock. We shouldn't take life so seriously and be like, I need to be a freaking CEO or this. I mean, good for you if that's what you want, but just remember that you're just a random animal. You're going to die and no one will have cared. Like, that's just how it is.
Except in the people that you show love to. That's the truth there, right? It's like no one will care except from the people that remember you. And if they die, no one's gonna care about any, you know. So, but like it's like in the moment when you have the connection there, that's what that matters. It's like you have to remove it from the end of like the finale of it all, bring it right to the moment where the moment is what matters, because those are the only thing that matters. Because you almost like it's centered focus. That's why attention is so important.
Yeah.
But that's why they're still out there, stealing our attention, because they become so easy. When you steal their attention of people, you make it easier for them not to live, you know, not to be alive or not to have.
That's the thing. I feel like they're not like, people are just on like autopilot. There's like work, dinner, sleep, work, dinner, sleep. And it's like, I understand that we need to do that for survival. But I just think we also need to remember why we're even here, you know, and like what even is the purpose of your life. Like, and I think sometimes sometimes I feel like it makes me almost like angry, because it makes me feel like you take life for granted. You think that, like, so I'm not saying everyone, of course, like everyone's different, but like, I do feel like society makes you believe that you will live till you're 90 and you'll have kids and get married. No, like that's not, like you can literally die at any moment. There's people in their 20s who get cancer. And I think, and it's sad because then people sometimes only realize how precious life is once they do get cancer, you know? And it's sad that it has to come to that point until you finally realize how like precious life is. And yeah, and I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just not made for the society, but
I had like that. So the conversation with my friend yesterday, I was like, man, I feel like I'm becoming more and more disillusioned with the society that we've created. And he was like, yeah, man, because like, why would you want to be aligned with a misaligned society? You know, if the society is misaligned in its own values that made it what it is, being misaligned yourself, feeling like you're not aligned.
I think it's like the whole, like, you know, like you always have to be competitive against the other. You always have to make more money. You always have to grow and grow and grow. And it's just like, I think it's just capitalism. It's just like, I don't like it's good for us.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not paint a better picture, because you paint a very big picture. But like, I think it's important if I state the problem, and then now we can offer a solution to it. Because I feel like,
and it's tough because we're so deep into this now. We can't, it's not something we can just change overnight, right? Like, I think because everything is built on this kind of economy and this kind of society, like, how are we gonna, I mean, it's gonna take so long to change that.
But it starts with one individual, right? It starts with the person looking at themselves and trying to change the way they interact with the world, right?
Yeah, definitely.
How have you done that then? Like, let's kind of talk about how people can come out of that bubble that they're in mentally, you know, that kind of like zombie landed in.
I think you just have to stay true to yourself, not take life for granted, and really understand, why am I here and what is my purpose on this earth and what is it that I want to achieve with the time I have on this earth. And for me, I think it's like, well, like I said, like kind of like I want to release some of the suffering of the earth. And the way I want to do that is by helping people. And again, like there was a journey for me to realize that. And I think I realized, wait, when I work in these companies, like I don't feel, I mean, I am making a difference, which is a good difference. But I think personally, I need to see like a direct difference. So that's why I want to get more into like therapy or teaching, things like that, basically.
I think it's so important. I think it's so important too, because I realized this for myself too, where it's like when I chase material kind of pursuits, you know, ambition, you know, I think we all get caught up in that. You know, anyone who's capable in any way can get caught up in the pursuit of something because they'll be like, oh man, I really want to be the best at that. But I also realized too that's a trap because that's you falling into the trap that's created. It's like that. It's like an image of like, you know, the cheese is always there, but
it's always, oh, if I have another promotion, then I'll be good, and another promotion, another. You're just like in an endless cycle, and then you just have more and more responsibilities, less and less time, and then you're
dead. You're dead because it's just 60 years old and everything's over.
So you have a burnout.
Yeah, it's not great. But I think there's an understanding within that where it's like once you kind of wake up to that, and I think that's what I'm going to talk about too. How did you maybe after that, say when you were 15, have that realization? How did you kind of piece your own world of your own like understanding back together? How did you form your own thought patterns about like, okay, I'm gonna move away from what everyone else says is the truth, which is like decadence and like achievement and all of that. I'm actually gonna build this. What kind of things did you read? What kind of like meditation practices and stuff that you did?
Well, I mean, I don't think that came like after the psychosis, you know what I mean? Like, I think it was definitely like a gradual thing. I think the first time that I got interested more into like Buddhism was when I was quite depressed at the time. And then my ex was quite into like meditation and things like that. So he lent me some books about it. And it really opened up my way of thinking and my new perspective. And I was like, oh my God, like when I was depressed, I didn't realize I was like blaming myself a lot. Like also like blaming others and always like, I don't know, I had a lot of like anger and things like that. But then learning more about Buddhism and meditation, I think that really helped me like understand that, you know, thoughts are just thoughts. They just come and go. And yeah, you shouldn't identify yourself too much with the thoughts that you get. And that, yeah, you just kind of can like take a step back for your emotions and not get too caught up into them. And that helped me really find like a kind of like more of like a peace, like more of like an inner peace. And then I did a lot of like meditation for a long time, or meditate like every day, and that really helped me with finding like kind of like an inner peace. Wait, what else?
I had the same as friend. There's no question. We're just talking. I had the same kind of realization too. For me, it was, I think I got into a point where I was just so always agitated, worried about the next thing, worried about something in the future or in the past. And I was like, cool, I have to change something. And so I started like meditation. That was like my own way of like kind of grasping some level of control in the moment. You know, and like even that was like wrong because I was like, oh, I was trying to hold on to something. Meditation was all about letting go and just accepting.
Exactly. It really helps you like let go. And I think that's a huge thing, like be able to let go of like everything. And I think that's when you really find peace, is when you can just let go of everything.
100%. And then from that, for me, it was like, okay, now I understand more of myself. It was about expression. So the question I have for you now is, how did expression for you help? Well, how did stuff like poetry help you kind of like understand yourself, and what was your journey into poetry?
So I think poetry for me is, well, I have a lot of like intense emotions, and so I think it started like when I was extremely depressed, like lowest of my life I've ever been. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I literally didn't know what to do with myself. And my friend was like, why don't you do like journaling? Why don't you like write down some of your emotions? I could help. I was like, okay, cool. So I started writing. And then, I don't know, I just felt inspired to just slowly became a poem. And I was like, oh, that's quite nice. And then, I don't know, I started doing it more and more. And now I do it like quite regularly. I really enjoy just like putting my feelings into words. It feels like less heavy for me once I have it kind of out there. It feels like I can let go of them. And I think it's important to be able to have some sort of artistic, like creative expression, like self-expression, whatever that is for everyone. Yeah.
I completely agree. I think it's like, for me, okay, my journey too was kind of very similar, where it's like I'd gone to a stage where I was very much at peace. Well, You know, that's a transient thing. But I was very much at peace in that moment. And I felt like I wanted to express, and I felt like it was good to try to express my inner monologue. And I've always been interested in like hip hop and all these different types of music. And so there was a kind of musical way of my thinking, and it kind of always had that texture to it. And I've always done poetry too. And so like once I started writing, what was so interesting for me was that I felt at the beginning I was forcing it, and it wouldn't come out well. But then when I let go and I wasn't in like judgmental whatever came out, that's when it really started. Oh, did you have that same experience?
I think I only write when I let go. I don't know how I can't force it. Like if I try to force it, I just won't write. Like I don't, yeah. So sometimes I don't write for months. Though I don't write all the time. I'm not like, oh my God, I have to write one every week or something. You know, it's very like I'm very letting it go like freely. Sometimes I write loads. Sometimes maybe almost nothing for a year. It really depends.
Do you write something that surprises you? Do you ever write something like, oh my God, I can't believe I felt that?
I think, you know, it's interesting because I wrote some poems and then I used to be like, oh, they're so bad. Like, I suck at this. And then I'll do the poetry performance and I'll be like, oh my God, like, I'm so much worse than everywhere. It's like, everyone's going to be like, who's this random girl thinking she can perform here? Number one, please. I went very much like, that's how I felt last time. And then people were like, wow, it's really good. I really liked your poetry. And I was like, oh my God, okay, people actually liked it. I think that kind of made me believe more in myself. And then when I had like a recent, very spiritual journey and a lot of things that I realized about myself and the world, I looked at my poetry again and I was like, this is beautiful. Like, why was I so hard on myself? You know? And I was like, oh, I actually like it. And I don't know. I was like, oh my God, like I was so hard on myself. And like, it's sad that I couldn't like see the beauty in my own art, you know?
I think it's so interesting for anyone to see the beauty in your own art because it shows a different side to yourself. Like I'm at a point where I can really say like I don't think I control my creativity. I think I have this idea about human beings being like meat puppets for ideas. And ideas
Being what?
are meat puppets. Like you're just like the mitzi.
Right.
You're just like you're a human being, you're walking around and like yours are just pinging to your brain. Yeah, it's like, yo, do his own thing, and then you're like, I have to express this. So it's like it's not you, it's like the idea is like breathing through you almost, you know, it's like this. But it's like I really do think that because my own experience is like I have ideas about things. Like right now I'm going through like a spiritual
Say what you want, just say it.
a spiritual awakening. And now this means that everything I write is now spiritual in a sense. It's like it's me trying to understand something that's larger than mine.
Yeah.
And then in like an in-between stage. And I'm like, even me, I'm like, I don't really know what this is trying to say, but I know I'm trying to say something, you know? And it's like always having that feeling. And I think that's even having that kind of conversation, because I found I have conversations with myself, you know, because it's just an internal monologue. I'm like, oh my God, this is really how I think, or this is really what I thought about that. They're like, God damn, like it's like that kind of like openness and vulnerability and all that thing. I think that's so important for just people to be balanced that way, you know. It exposes that different side to you. Speaking of openness and vulnerability, I think a lot of the time people don't do that. People don't make that jump because they have fear. So I want to talk about fear now and how fear is controlling people and how people, once they let go of fear, once they let go of trying to fit in, they can now like embrace the world, embrace themselves. Talk a bit more about that. What role do you think fear plays in our society and how do you think people can like overcome it?
I think fear plays a huge role in our society. Like I think a lot of the things we do are based in fear. And I think, I mean, in a way it's normal, right? Like the world can be a scary place. Like I think us humans have always been on survival for like, you know, thousands of years. And of course, like fear is kind of what drove us to find, like be able to survive all this time. And evolve, yeah. So I think it definitely needs to play a role. I think a lot of it has to do with trauma as well. Like if something traumatic happened to you, you're scared of it happening again. So you have like a defense mechanism, right? And I think that is really hard to get rid of. So I completely understand that people are in fear. I don't know. I think like personally, I feel like the more you let go of fear, the more free you are. And I think personally, I always wanted to find freedom. And I think once I really let go of fear is when I found it. And is when I was just like, I just don't care. Like I just stopped caring. It's just too much energy to care at this point. Like I'll just do whatever I want and that's it. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, if it's not going to work out, then it won't work out, and then I'll figure it out, and that's it. Like, it's not, and if I'll die, then I'll die. Like, that's fine too. Like,
how does someone get to that stage? There's someone's watching this. I relate to what you're saying. I want to be able to let go of fear and live like that, but it's still stuck in that mode of always speaking about what everyone else thinks about them. How do they get out of that and, like, embrace freedom or whatever?
I think you just have to, like, get over your fears and just do the things that scare you. I think that's the only way. I think the more you do things that scare you, the more you do things out of your comfort zone, the more you'll be confident and the more you'll trust in yourself and the less you'll have fear. If you keep doing things out of fear, you will keep telling your brain that you're scared. You will keep telling your brain that you're not strong enough to do these things. And then that's what you believe, and then you have more fear. If you go against your fears and you actually face them and you do things that take courage, that's when you realize, wait, I'm not this, like, I can get over, like, hard times and I can, like, do these things. And you have more confidence and then you have less fear. So I think it's always just about getting out of your comfort zones. Yeah.
And I think I watched this video the other day, and he was talking about how fear is just like it's like this thing that we have that's unconfirmed, right? It's like, like my friend has a saying, it was fear is false evidence appearing real. It's like false understanding of the environment appearing like it's real, because usually fear isn't based on anything in that moment. Say you're about to go up and perform, right? You feel the fear, you feel this emotion inside of me that could be fear, it could be excitement, but you think it's fear. So you go like, oh man, I'm going to hold on to it. But again, like, once you push through it, we do it, it comes out as excitement. It comes out as that's so how get it. So was that fear? Was it excitement? You just masked it.
Yeah. But I think also it's so normal and natural, right, for us to have that. It's literally like such a huge, like, it's ingrained in us. It's like our survival instinct. Like, for example, with the poetry, I think it's because, like, back in the days, like, when we were hunter-gatherers, if you're, like, kicked out of your tribe, you'll die, right? So it's like survival instinct thing. So it's like, you're never going to really fully be able to get rid of that. I think all you can do is trying to prove yourself wrong and kind of, like, face those fears.
That's the thing, it's like the environment has changed. We're not hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, for sure. But obviously, like,
you have to try to make your body understand.
You have to basically, like, evolve by yourself. You have to literally, when you do these things, you literally evolve to, like, a higher level.
Yeah, it's like evolve or die is kind of the thing,
Yeah.
It's like if you don't evolve, you get stuck in the same place.
Yeah.
And then you leave yourself behind. I think there's a lot of understanding. I think it can even simplify it, where it's like, if you just show up as who you are, people are going to be more okay with you. A lot of the time people will show up as someone they think other people are going to like. And then maybe it's people start liking that version of themselves that isn't them.
Yeah.
Because it's scared to show up as themselves. But, like, if you just show up as yourself, it's much easier for you, but also for the people around you.
Yeah.
Because they can actually see you, and then people have thoughts, whatever. You can work on them. But it's like letting go of that fear and showing up is so important to begin our journey towards that, I think also, like, another question I had was, like, you're living from the heart instead of the mind. You talked a lot today about spirituality and, like, religion and all these things, and psychology and science. And I think you can separate those into two camps. One camp is living from the mind, rationality, and, like, prosper and, like, survival. Another is living from the heart, compassion, love, kind of embracing the world. How do you like square that? Like, which one how do you balance the two?
Yeah.
Because you also have to live intellectually sometimes. You have to live rationally.
Sure.
But also, like, you can't just do that.
Yeah, but I think that's what I struggled with it for a long time, is to find that balance. And I think that's, for me, like, a huge thing is, like, balance with everything. Like, literally, I think it's, like, the key to happiness, honestly. And that's why you need to be able to still use your rational mind and still be able to live from the heart as well, and listen for your heart. And I think when I do get these psychosis, I'm not balanced anymore. I'm, like, all from the heart, but my rational self is completely gone, and that's also dangerous, right? But then the other way is when you're too rational and you lose that spiritual part of yourself, you lose your source, and then you're, like, depressed or you have anxiety, So it's like, I think it's definitely, like, balancing the two is, like, very important. Yeah. And I think that's something that I might have to, like, it might be something that I'll learn throughout my life,
Yes.
I don't know if that's something you ever fully, like, maybe that's what spiritually he is.
When you have to balance them both. God damn. So I'm not spiritual. First of all, it's both. That's how you can know. Okay, final question then. Let's bring this on. So we've talked a lot about life today, and I always ask people when I come on here, what is the meaning of life? For you, from everything that you've understood about the world so far, well, looking out, what do you think? I know you mentioned love and compassion, but I want to develop more on that too and how people can do that. But what is your meaning of life? How if you look out in the world, why do you think we're here?
So I think so. I have a why we're here. I'm not sure there's a reason, to be honest. I think it's just random. I think a lot of coincidences happened for this to happen, and I think that's what's so crazy about it is that everything needs to be perfectly aligned for there to be life on a planet, and the fact that we got that, and then not only life, but life that evolves enough to have consciousness. Like, that is insane in itself. Like, how many planets are there that have that? I mean, we haven't found one yet. I'm sure there are some, but I mean, it's really tough to get that. And I think that in itself is a gift. Why we're here, I mean, I don't really know. Like, there's a reason, maybe not. I think, well, my mom would say we're here to improve our soul and make things better in the world. And I do think that that's why I am here, is my purpose is to like help the world get better or like release some suffering. But I also believe that everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own purpose, and that's for everyone to find out by themselves. And then like the meaning of life. I mean, I would say meaning of humans is honestly, I think it's just to enjoy life. It's just to experience it. It's just to be here and actually experience it and be like, damn, this is pretty cool that we get to experience that. I mean, I don't know how many other planets get to do that.
Or even other life forms.
Yeah. Or other life forms. I mean, I could have been a little bacteria, like that would have been kind of boring. I don't know. Maybe it's cool to be bacteria. I don't know. But like, I think it's pretty cool to be a human. To be even able to have this kind of conversation is amazing. So I would say the meaning of life is that we should just appreciate it, value it for what it is, respect it. And yeah, like live with love and kindness and compassion, and to try to find a reason to be here and try to make the most of it.
That's unbelievable. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Mara. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
This has been amazing. Like, I think you're one of those people who have like clarity and able to see the world in such a powerful way. I think doing it from love is also beautiful. I think I relate to that a lot. But how a lot of the world is going in one direction, but it's actually we have to pull it back in that direction. I think we start by just on ourselves, having that conversation about ourselves, about how we want the world to be, but also like embodying that in the world. Yeah. So like, I'm glad that you're doing it. I'm glad, and I think that I'm glad you have that goal of trying to help people. That's beautiful. That's amazing. So keep going. I'm glad that you had this time to sit down with me today.
Yeah, it was really fun. My first podcast.
I hope you know your last, right? Feel free to know your last. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being on. Until next time.
Thanks so much.
Peace. Bye.